I'm really interested in what I think of as histories. So I never think of it as singular, I never think of it as linear. It's something that's cyclical, it's something that's multiple. And the idea is if we don't understand the multiple in terms of histories, we will never get the complete picture. And we are in a situation then where narratives, stories and experiences are erased. I made quite an early piece of work called The Singing Will Never Be Done, in which I read a section of the Rivers of Blood speech by Enoch Powell. Enoch Powell was a right-wing politician who made this speech in 1968, which is about the repatriation of anyone he believed was an immigrant in the UK at that time.
It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre. So insane are we that we actually permit unmarried persons to immigrate for the purpose of founding a family with spouses and fiancés whom they have never seen.
Now, he famously made this speech at a moment in Wolverhampton, where there's a historical link to it. My father was teaching in Wolverhampton at the time, and he was on a board looking at race relations, as they called it at that time, in Wolverhampton. So it was a moment where I was, even as a very small child, I became more and more aware of politics. Now, my speaking of the Rivers of Blood speech as a black woman is not the same in terms of meaning as Enoch Powell, a white, right-wing, I would say fascist politician in the kind of late 60s. One of the things that I'm really interested in is this idea of the audible fingerprint and how we can say things, whether or not they're our words or other people's words, but our delivery of those words shifts and changes meaning based on who we are and what our experiences are.
And in your family, you were a gentle joke. Uncle Tom, conformist, a white black man, little goody-goody. Negroes are savages, brutes, illiterates. But in my own case, I knew that these statements were false.
When I first started to make work, I used myself and I used my family, and we were this conduit for kind of conversations about many things really, but about race and about kind of the politics of race in the UK. But what I realised was actually stories translate. So I made a film called Changing Room that is essentially, it's about a relationship, an imagined conversation between myself and my father.
Because for me in that moment, you are not the boy aged 8, or the soldier aged 18, or the man with so much achieved. You're my father.
And I made this film and I showed it in a group show in London. And a woman came up to me at the end and she said, "You know what, Helen, I have to tell you that film was amazing. I feel really moved by it. I'm not black, I'm white. But what I took from that was about an imagined conversation with my father. Everything that you said was all about the things that my father had struggled with his whole life, this idea of barriers, not being able to do what he really wanted to do." And that moment I realised that I didn't have to start saying, "Oh, yes, I make work about race," or "I make work about this," because people will take what they want to take, what they need to take from work. They will relate and identify with what they want to and what they need to identify with. What I want to do with art is have conversations that might affect some change. Art is about transformation. And so in order to try to affect change, I think that the transformation that I try to develop leaves and allows space for people to find their way in with it. We have a responsibility to each other, I think, to understand who we are and what our stake in life is, I suppose. Many of the conversations I have are about this idea of the collective. And so, of course, I do have a sense of responsibility, and that extends to my life as an artist as well.
Get more from the Open University. Check out the links on screen now.